Today we're going to talk about beavers, and this is the sound a beaver makes. When you think of beavers, the first thing that probably comes to mind is the expression busy as a beaver. People have been thinking of beavers as eager, hard workers for a long time. For example, there is an Indian legend that tells of the Great Spirit building the earth with the help of beavers. This would certainly have been a big enough job to keep a lot of beavers very busy, and it would have been a good job for them because they are excellent builders. Now let's find out what makes beavers such good builders and what is keeping them so busy today. Beavers, who and where? There are some beavers in Europe and Asia, but most of them live in Canada and the United States. The beaver has no close relatives, but it does have some distant cousins. You can recognize them by their teeth. All beavers have big, very sharp front teeth that they use for cutting. Squirrels, rats, and gophers have sharp front cutting teeth too. Scientists call animals that have special teeth like these rodents. The name comes from a word that means to gnaw or chew, which is just what all rodents love to do. Beavers up close. The sturdy beaver is the largest rodent in North America. You would have to be quite strong to lift an adult beaver. In fact, if an average-sized 8-year-old and a beaver were sitting on either end of a teeter-totter, their weights would about balance. An amazing tail. There is no mistaking a beaver's wide, scaly tail. It looks like a pine cone that has been flattened by a steamroller. This amazing tail serves many purposes. When the beaver is swimming, it steers itself through the water by shifting its tail from side to side. If it is towing a heavy log, it moves its tail to balance the weight. A frightened beaver slaps its tail against the water with a loud thwack. The sound tells other beavers to dive for safety. A beautiful coat. The beaver's coat may not be as remarkable as its tail, but it is much more beautiful. It is soft and silky and can range from golden brown to rich dark brown in color. It is also very warm, which is probably more important from the beaver's point of view. Why is the beaver's coat so warm? Because it has 2 layers. The outer layer is made up of a long, shiny guard, hairs. Underneath is a thick, woolly layer of shorter fur. It is a coat worth taking good care of, and beavers do just that. They even have a built-in comb for the purpose, 2 double claws on each hind foot. These claws can open and close, rather like a pair of tiny pliers, and the beaver uses them to untangle its fur and to comb out any twigs and clumps of dirt. As well, all beavers have a pair of glands near their tails, where a special oil is made. They spread this oil through their fur with their paws. Even after an hour of swimming, a beaver's body stays dry and cozy inside its oily, waterproofed coat. In the wintertime, keeping warm and dry is especially important to the beaver. This beaver is grooming its fur to get ready for the swim home. This waterproofing is important because beavers spend much of their time cutting and peeling branches underwater. Most animals would soon get waterlogged if they tried this, but beavers never do. They have furry lips that close behind their front teeth to keep the water out so they can work just as well underwater as they can on land. Very near the glands where the oil is made is another set of glands called castors, where castoreum is made. Castoreum is a strong-smelling, oily substance with which beavers mark their ponds and lodges to let other beavers know who lives there. Seeing, smelling, and hearing. Beavers have very small ears and eyes, but their hearing is excellent, and they see quite well, at least in daylight. They find seeing in the dark just as hard as you do, however. Yet beavers do most of their work at night. Instead of relying on their eyesight, they use their sharp senses of smell and hearing to direct them and alert them to danger. Beavers are champions in the water. With a flat tail for steering and strong, webbed back feet to supply the power, this is their back paw, beavers are perfect water travelers. Their bodies are streamlined for swimming. Holding its tiny fist tight against its chest, a beaver glides through the water with only its head above the surface. Beavers are also terrific underwater swimmers. Their large lungs can store lots of air, and most beavers can hold their breath for about 10 minutes. No matter what kind of fancy flips and dives a beaver makes, it is never bothered by water getting into its nose or ears. Beavers have special muscles that seal their nostrils and ears when they are diving. A beaver's eyes are protected too, thanks to an extra pair of see-through eyelids that close over its eyes. A beaver can see just as well underwater as it can above. Clumsy on land. Getting around on land is another story. Imagine playing tag in the woods with swim fins on your feet. You would trip all over your big floppy feet and be easy to catch. Beavers have the same problem. With webbed back feet the size of ping pong paddles, beavers are very slow and awkward on land. For beavers, water means safety. When they do have to go ashore to cut trees, they listen and sniff the air carefully to make sure no one is coming. The more a beaver uses its teeth, the sharper they become. A beaver's front teeth are very special. Like your fingernails, these large teeth never stop growing. A beaver must chew to trim its teeth just as you must clip your nails to keep them from getting too long. The outer surface of these front teeth has an incredibly strong orange coating. As the beaver chews through pieces of wood, the backs of the teeth wear down faster than the strong orange fronts. The more a beaver uses its teeth, the sharper they get for cutting. The beaver's back molars are special too. They are as sharp and bumpy as a cheese grater. A beaver uses these teeth to grind up about 500 grams, more than a pound of tree bark every day. Special food. You may prefer ice cream, but tree bark is a beaver's favorite food. When a beaver is eating, it looks just like someone enjoying a cob of corn. It holds and turns a branch between its paws as it nibbles away at the tasty bark. Beavers do most of their feeding inside their homes or in the water where they are safest from hungry animals. One good thing about eating tree bark is that you can always have a snack before the hard work of cutting down a tree. In the spring and summer, beavers like to eat juicy shrubs and tree buds. During the fall, they eat more bark than usual and put on extra fat for the winter. They cut down many trees and gnaw them into short pieces. These are stored in big underwater piles near their homes. When the ice freezes over the top of their pond, the beavers have enough food stored to last the winter. It doesn't happen often, but some winters the pond may freeze all the way through. Unable to swim to their underwater food store, the beavers could die of hunger. But beavers are lucky. Their homes are built from the same thing they eat, branches. As long as the winter doesn't last too long, the beavers can survive by eating bits of their home. A tender summer leaf is always good for a nibble. The beaver at work. A beaver will usually work alone when cutting down a tree. If you have ever had the painful experience of biting your tongue, you know how strong your chewing muscles are. A beaver's chewing muscles are much stronger than yours. With these powerful muscles and its very sharp teeth, a single beaver may cut down more than 200 trees every year. When cutting, a beaver stands on its hind legs and leans back against its broad tail. It cuts with its head held sideways. The grooves left by the beaver's sharp teeth run across the tree trunk in the same direction as marks left by an axe. Beavers are messy workers. Instead of chewing out neat slices, a beaver takes several bites from the top of a cut and several bites from the bottom. Then it yanks out the wood that is left in the middle. The beaver's top teeth do most of the cutting, while the bottom teeth help to steady its mouth. Many people think that a beaver can make a tree fall whichever way it wants. It cannot, and it does not even know which way a tree it is cutting will fall. That is why a beaver cuts only until its teeth feel the last bits of wood, just starting to break. Then swoosh, the beaver dashes for the safety of its pond. The crash of the falling tree can be heard all over the forest. Before leaving the pond, the beaver waits and sniffs the air to make sure that no hungry bears or cougars have followed the sound in search of a beaver lunch. Getting it home. When all seems safe, the beaver and its family will begin cutting off branches and dragging them back to their pond. If a log is too heavy for one beaver to carry in its mouth, two beavers will work together rolling the log along the ground with their front paws. It can seem like a long way to the pond when you have to drag a branch this size with you. Once the trees near the pond are used up, beavers may have to move the logs quite a distance. Sometimes when this happens, they dig canals that carry water from the pond closer to the trees. Then they can simply float the heavy logs back home. Beavers have been known to dig canals as much as 100 meters long. Building the dam. The perfect beaver pond is deep and surrounded by lots of trees. Beavers need to build their homes in deep ponds so that the underwater entrances are well covered. They also need deep water to keep the pond from freezing solid in the winter. To make their ponds deep enough, beavers build dams. A dam works like the plug in your bathtub. The plug stops the tap water from running the drain. Beavers build dams across the low banks or creeks where water could flow out of their ponds. With these exits sealed, the water from incoming streams gets trapped in the pond, making it very deep. Beavers are nature's engineers. Beavers are born knowing how to build dams. They start their building by holding large sticks in their mouths and driving them straight into the river bottom. Almost everything that a beaver can find goes into the dam: wood, grass, rocks, and sometimes an old flashlight or shoe. A beaver dam is built like a layer cake. Just as the cake is held together by layers of icing, the dam is held together by layers of mud. It is sometimes said that beavers use their tails to hammer in branches and spread mud when building dams, but this is not true. Beavers use their paws and noses to smear the mud over their dam. Beavers will build until the sound of water running out of their pond has stopped. This sound is such an important signal for the beavers that scientists have been able to trick them into building dams by playing tape recordings of trickling water sounds. Beaver meadows. People get angry when a beaver's dam floods a road or field. It is true that beaver dams can sometimes be a nuisance, but they can be useful too, and not just to beavers. Beaver ponds become home to many new plants and animals. Grazing cattle often drink from them, and many years later, after the dam is rotted away and the pond is dried up, the soil will be very rich for farming. This land, which was once covered by a beaver pond, is now known as a beaver meadow. A home of stick and muds. When the dam is finished, the beavers start to work on a home. There is a lot of variety in beaver homes. In fact, no two are exactly alike. If the beavers live in a pond that has a very high bank, they may simply dig a burrow in the side and live there. When the banks are low, beavers build a special kind of home called a lodge in their pond. The beavers start their lodge by anchoring sticks in the bottom of the pond and piling a huge mound of branches on top. With every member of the family helping, the mound soon reaches high above the water. The branches are cemented together with thin mud. Carrying the mud in their paws or under their chins, the beavers dash as far up the slippery sides of the lodge as they can get. The mud that they dump flows down the sides, covering the lodge like syrup on a stack of pancakes. Because the beavers seldom make it all the way up, the top gets very little mud. The mudless roof is important. It allows plenty of fresh air to get into the lodge. When the outside is almost finished, the beavers dive underwater and begin to chew a tunnel through to the center of the mound. They make a large living room above water level and then cut out at least one more entrance tunnel. The doorways to the tunnels are hidden underwater so that bears and wolves will not be able to get in. Beavers will stay in the same pond and live in the same lodge as long as there are plenty of trees in the area. Like most homeowners, they spend a lot of time improving their lodges. As the family grows, additions are built to make the lodge roomy enough for everyone. When there is work to be done, the whole beaver colony pitches in. This is what you might see if you could slice off one side of a typical beaver lodge. While from the outside the lodge looks like a pile of sticks, inside it looks like a comfortable home. During the winter, the beaver family stays warm by snuggling together inside their home. Even when the temperature outside drops to negative 58 degrees. The heat of the beaver's bodies keeps the inside of the lodge above the freezing point. A blanket of snow on the lodge helps trap heat inside too. When a beaver gets hungry in the winter, it takes a deep breath and swims out of the tunnel to the underwater food pile that was built in the fall. The beaver family. Cows live in herds and chickens live in flocks, but beavers live in family groups just as you do. A beaver family is called a colony. A mother and father beaver stay together for their whole lives. Though both parents help to raise the babies, it is the mother who makes the final decisions in a beaver colony. Beavers mate each year late in January or early February. During the breeding season, the beaver pairs spend a lot of time frolicking and play wrestling below the icy covering of their pond. The beavers mate during some of these underwater play sessions. A female beaver has to wait 3.5 months for her babies to be born. While she is waiting, she prepares a special nursery inside the lodge. She builds warm, comfortable beds for her babies by splitting soft wood into thin chips. A beaver mother likes to be alone when her babies are born. Shortly before they arrive, the father leaves the lodge and moves into a burrow on the edge of the pond. When the birth time comes, the mother beaver sits up with her tail between her legs and carefully licks each baby as it's born. Beavers usually have a litter of 4 babies called kits. Beaver kits are born with a tiny set of sharp front teeth, a thick furry coat, and a flat, scaly tail. Beaver babies. Weighing a little more than a baseball, each wide-eye kit looks like a tiny copy of its parents. It even has a tiny set of sharp front teeth. Beaver kits never need to take swimming lessons. They can swim a few hours after they are born. Their thick fur coats trap so much air that the kits bob along the water surface like corks. In fact, the babies float so well that they cannot dive until they have gained a few pounds. But since a floating kit would be an easy catch for a hungry hawk or otter, the mother keeps her babies inside the lodge for the first 2 months. Just like new human babies, beaver kits wake up every few hours and cry to be fed. They often sit on their mother's tail when they are nursing. Beaver milk is butter yellow and as thick as toothpaste. This rich milk helps the babies grow quickly. Beaver parents teach their kits to dive when they hear a tail slap against the water. The kits learn many things by copying their parents and older brothers and sisters. When they see an older beaver chewing on a leaf, they rush over to have a taste. If another beaver dives for a branch, they dive too. One important lesson the kits must learn is how to recognize danger. They are taught to sniff the air for the smell of wolves, cougars, and bears, and to watch and listen for otters, hawks, and owls. Both beaver parents are quick to help a whining kit. They will often carry them from danger by holding them in their mouths or scooping them up in their arms. Beaver youngsters live with their parents for 2 years. Since a new litter is born every year, this means that a typical beaver family has about 10 members, mother and father, 1-year-olds called yearlings, and kits. The yearlings usually move out with their father for 2 weeks or so when the new litter is being born. By this time they are helping with the cutting and carrying chores and with any needed repairs to the dam or lodge. At 2 years of age, the young beavers are ready to leave home. They have to leave to make room for a new litter of kits. Most of them go quite